As the golden evening sun filtered through the kitchen window, casting long shadows on the table, Reagan found herself sitting across from Claire. The tension between them was palpable, a silent storm brewing in the otherwise calm room. Claire sat there, unperturbed, her fingers idly tapping against her coffee mug, the soft clinks echoing like a distant warning bell. "I used it for the wedding," Claire announced with a nonchalance that twisted Reagan's insides. Her calm, almost dismissive demeanor felt like salt in an open wound. Reagan's heart raced, each word from Claire sharpening her disbelief. "That was my money." Her voice trembled with rising panic. "I worked 2 years bussing tables, saving for college. You promised to invest it, Claire." Claire's voice turned dangerously cold as she replied, "And I did. I invested it where it mattered on your brother Ryder's wedding. It was family money, Reagan. You'll have to move on." Reagan's blood simmered under her skin, anger clawing its way to the surface. Ryder, her stepbrother, seemed oblivious to the turmoil his wedding had caused. To him, an extravagant celebration was unquestionably more crucial than her college dreams. It was as if an unspoken hierarchy had been silently etched into the family dynamic, one that placed her aspirations at the very bottom. Their father, Bennett, entered just as the tension in the room reached its peak, his presence barely registering amid the turmoil. "What's all this commotion?" he asked, his eyes darting between them as if trying to catch up. "Ask Claire," Reagan snapped, her voice edged with betrayal. "She spent my college savings on Ryder's wedding." The gravity of the situation bore down on her, and her heart ached with a mix of loss and determination. Reagan was a young woman of 21, filled with hopes of attending a nearby university and pursuing a nursing degree, a dream her late mother had cherished for her. After her mother passed away when Reagan was only 12, and her father remarried, she yearned for a semblance of normalcy. But Claire, ever the tactician, had quickly established her own set of priorities. Reagan had been diligent in her efforts, saving every tip and pay from her job towards her college fund. Claire had spoken extensively about financial wisdom, convincing Reagan to let her handle the investment. Blind trust, Reagan realized now, was a mistake. Bennett looked at Claire with confusion. "I don't understand," he murmured, scratching his head, uncertainty etched across his face. Claire, feigning indifference, walked past him. "I only found out now," Reagan's voice cracked as she explained. "Claire promised to invest the money properly, but she used it all for Ryder's wedding." Bennett's face was a mask of indecision. He was averse to confrontation, a fact Claire fully exploited. "I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding," he stammered. "A misunderstanding?" Reagan's voice rose again, cutting through the air like a blade. "She admitted it. She doesn't even believe she did anything wrong, Dad." Without a response, Bennett retreated upstairs, leaving Reagan alone with the oppressive weight of Claire's betrayal. She felt her future slipping away, while her father's inaction only made the sting worse. Reagan lay awake that night, her thoughts swirling around like a cyclone of anger and resolve. Determined not to let Claire destroy her dreams without a fight, an idea began to take form. The next morning, with newfound determination fueling her, Reagan contacted a local attorney, Carter Benson, whose name she'd seen on a community bulletin. "I need to know my options," she confided over the phone. "Can I reclaim what's mine?" Carter's response was candid and encouraging. "If you can prove the funds were yours and misused without consent, you have a potential case. But it might be a challenging road. Are you willing to pursue this?" Taking a deep breath, Reagan felt the weight of the decision pressing on her. Legal action felt drastic, but was a necessary stand. "Yes," she said with unwavering resolve, her voice steady. "I'm ready." When she broke the news to Bennett, his reaction was one of shock. "Reagan, do you really want to go through with this?" he inquired, the chaos of his mind mirrored in his restless pacing. "She's already caused enough tension, Dad," Reagan retorted, her determination unquenched. "This is about doing what's right." Bennett's shoulders sank as he absorbed her words, a flicker of recognition shadowing his gaze. But the moment was fleeting as Claire re-entered the room, irritation etched into her features, ready to defend her actions yet again. Reagan steeled herself for the battles to come, a storm of courage roaring in her heart. In the dim light of the study, Marlowe glanced up from her mug of coffee, the steam swirling between them like a curtain of doubt. "Reagan, tell me you have a plan," she prodded, her voice carrying a mixture of concern and curiosity. Reagan, seated across from her, felt the weight of determination pressing down on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. The words spilled from her lips with more conviction than she felt. "It's not about dragging anyone through the mud," she declared, the tremor in her voice barely hidden. "This is my future we're talking about, and I refuse to surrender it." Claire's mocking smile was like a cold breeze in the tense atmosphere. "Go ahead, darling. Fight all you want." "You won't get anywhere," she taunted, as if Reagan's struggle were a mere inconvenience. But it was at this moment that Reagan's resolve crystallized, realizing that Claire had underestimated her perseverance. With steely determination, Reagan partnered with her lawyer, Mr. Benson. Together, they embarked on a daunting journey, collecting bank statements, pay stubs, and every piece of evidence she could find to affirm her ownership of the savings. Her fight had grown beyond reclaiming the $8,000. It was about asserting her own value, her own dignity, which had been trampled by Claire's betrayal. Filing the lawsuit felt like stepping into unknown waters. Reagan was not just challenging her stepmother, she was navigating the fragile ecosystem her family had become. Her father, Bennett, grew distant, spending most of his time tinkering in his workshop to avoid the tension at home. Meanwhile, Claire engaged in a petty campaign of passive aggression, leaving snide notes on the fridge and making disparaging remarks in passing. Yet, Reagan stood firm, refusing to be swayed. As the court date loomed 3 months away, Mr. Benson, an experienced attorney specializing in small claims disputes, emphasized the importance of robust evidence. "Documents alone might not sway the court," he warned during a meeting. "We need to establish without doubt that the money was yours and was misused by Claire. Anything written, any witness statements, could help." Reagan presented a folder containing bank deposit records from her waitressing job and a brief handwritten note entrusting the money to Claire. "This isn't an official contract," she admitted, "but it's a start." "We can subpoena Claire's financial statements," Mr. Benson assured, examining the papers. "If the money went into her accounts for purposes other than agreed, it'll be in the records." During the tense weeks leading to trial, Reagan's father confronted her less frequently, his footsteps awkwardly retreating before any real dialogue could unfold. On one rare occasion, he lingered at her door. "Is this really worth the upheaval?" he questioned, his voice laden with uncertainty. "She got caught, and she's furious," Reagan replied, eyes locked on her laptop. "I have to see this through, Dad." Bennett's resignation was palpable as he backed away, his silence conceding that the fracture started long before Reagan took a stand. "She already divided us when she devalued my dreams, Dad. Please understand." Amidst the familial strain, Reagan found comfort in friendship, surrounded by her friends who became her support system. During a late-night coffee run, Marlowe's voice was a soothing balm, offering validation amidst the chaos. "It was wrong of her to take your money, and she's accountable, Reagan." "But what if I lose?" Reagan confessed, vulnerability seeping through the cracks in her otherwise steely exterior. "What if everything falls apart in court?" "You won't," Marlowe insisted, unwavering in her confidence. "You fought too hard, and regardless of the outcome, standing up for yourself is your real victory." Her friend's encouragement became the threads of strength that held Reagan together as the court date approached. Then came an unexpected twist. While combing through the financial records, Mr. Benson uncovered startling discrepancies. Large withdrawals were discovered from a joint account that Claire shared with Bennett. The funds hadn't solely been allocated to Ryder's lavish wedding. They painted a picture of questionable financial maneuvers that extended beyond what anyone in the family had imagined. This revelation added a new layer to the unfolding drama, fueling Reagan's fight with fresh determination. As dawn broke, casting gentle light through the windows, Reagan braced herself for what lay ahead. She clutched new evidence that could unravel everything she thought she knew about her family. For years, Claire had funneled significant amounts into a personal account, indulging in lavish items and secret escapades. Even her father, Bennett, had remained in the dark. "This changes everything," Mr. Benson remarked during their final strategy session before trial. "It's no longer just about your college savings. We can demonstrate a pattern of deceit." Reagan had anticipated betrayal from Claire, but the depth of her deception left her standing on shaky ground. She weighed the implications of this new information heavily. Sure, it bolstered her case significantly, but it also risked shattering her father's world. Conflicted, she shared her concerns with Marlowe the night before the courtroom clash. "It might break him," Reagan confessed, fear threading through her words. "He deserves the truth," Marlowe reassured, her voice steady. "He has lived under her shadow for long enough. Maybe this revelation is the jolt he needs." The morning of the trial unfolded with Reagan feeling as though she carried a boulder on her back. As she settled into her seat, Claire, impeccably composed, seemed untouched by impending consequences. Her luxurious demeanor was almost a mockery to the gravity of the situation. Bennett, sitting square beside Claire, wore an expression clouded by confusion and dread, unable to meet Reagan's gaze. As proceedings began, Reagan found strength in the truth. Mr. Benson meticulously laid out her bank statements, her note to Claire, and the damning financial documentation that underscored Claire's reckless indulgences. "It's clear," Mr. Benson articulated with authority, "the funds were misappropriated, prioritizing personal gain over familial duty." Claire's legal team attempted to paint a picture of mutual understanding, yet when Mr. Benson unveiled the subpoenaed records, detailing withdrawals from familial accounts, silence gelled in the courtroom. Bennett's face, drained of color, mirrored the scenes of a broken trust as he absorbed truth laid bare. Claire, too, for the first time, appeared uneasy, her facade of indomitability cracking. Taking the stand, Reagan looked directly into the judge's eyes. Each spoken word fortified her resolve. "That money represented my academic dreams," she asserted, voice unwavering despite the emotional knot in her throat. Claire was to nurture it, not exploit it for self-serving ends. "This is much more than just a sum of money. It's about justice. It's about having my voice heard." Reagan's determination surged as she retreated to her seat. The courtroom buzzed with a palpable tension, the weight of revelations hanging like a thick fog. As the judge reviewed the unassailable evidence presented, the serious nature of Claire's actions began to tower over the discourse. "Mrs. Alden," the judge addressed directly, her tone unyielding, "you exploited Miss Carter's trust. Moreover, your actions reveal an extensive history of misappropriating joint accounts." Claire's lawyer floundered, fumbling for coherence in his defense, but the judge's skepticism was clear. She lifted the financial documents, a stark reminder of the undeniable facts. "This transcends mere poor judgment or misunderstood intentions. It is a profound breach of fiduciary duty." Glancing at her father, Reagan saw the veil of betrayal settled into deep lines on his face, each revelation wounding anew. When Claire spoke, her composure was brittle, her words meticulously chosen. "Your Honor," she began with contrived humility, "this has been exaggerated. Using Reagan's savings seemed like the best family decision. My son's wedding was of great significance." "But you spent all of it," retorted the judge, unwavering, her gaze piercing through pretexts. "You cannot claim such an expense was an investment in Miss Carter's future." Reagan felt a sense of clarity wash over her. She realized that, even in the face of familial collapse, reclaiming her truth had already ignited her journey to empowerment. As the judge's gavel echoed in the courtroom, it felt like the final note in a long, discordant symphony of betrayal. Cassandra, the judge, fixed her gaze on Claire with an intensity that seemed to peel back layers of deception. "Mrs. Alden," Cassandra declared with authority, "the evidence clearly shows you're involved in misusing family finances for your personal gain. Do you really believe these actions are justifiable?" Claire hesitated, a rare vulnerability slipping through her practiced veneer. "I didn't intend," she stammered, but Cassandra cut her off decisively. "Intent is irrelevant when faced with betrayal and misuse of trust." As Reagan listened, her pulse raced with a mix of expectancy and relief. She had never anticipated emerging from this ordeal with such profound vindication. Cassandra's words resonated like an anthem of justice. "In light of these findings, I rule in favor of Miss Carter," Cassandra announced. "Mrs. Alden is commanded to return the $8,000 with interest, payable within 60 days. Additionally, I urge a comprehensive audit of Mrs. Alden's financial dealings." The verdict echoed into stillness, the courtroom cloaked in a silence that mirrored Claire's own pale, tight-lipped facade. Bennett, Reagan's father, sank into his seat, the weight of truth finally breaking through his denial. Reagan exhaled, a wave of relief cascading over her. Justice wasn't just about reclaiming the money, it was about acknowledging her hardship and proving to herself she was never just being unreasonable. As they exited the courthouse, Claire's bitter whisper trailed behind Reagan. "You'll regret this." Claire spat with venomous disdain. Meeting her gaze head-on, Reagan felt a pang of pride swell within her. "No, Claire," she countered with unwavering resolve. "You'll regret underestimating me." The confrontation over, Bennett hurried to catch up with his daughter, sorrow etched across his features. "Reagan," he began, voice trembling with uncertainty. "I didn't know what she was doing." "You didn't want to see," Reagan replied, her tone firm yet compassionate. "Turning a blind eye was easier than facing the truth, but this is what happens when reality is ignored." Bennett's head bobbed in resigned acceptance, his composure crumbling. "You're right," he admitted with a raw honesty that Reagan had longed for. "I failed you. I'm sorry." Although not the heartfelt apology she had hoped for, it was a step toward resolution. For the first time, she perceived Bennett not as the passive bystander, but as a man struggling with the repercussions of his own choices. While it didn't absolve the past, it offered a kernel of closure Reagan hadn't expected. Emerging from the courthouse, sunlight kissed her skin as if celebrating her triumph. The exhausting battle had culminated in victory. Claire's deceptions were exposed, and Bennett's blind allegiance had been shaken to its core. A text buzzed on Reagan's phone, a message from Marlowe. "You did it. Drinks on me tonight." With a smile, Reagan typed back, "Absolutely." For Reagan, this fight transcended monetary gain. It was about reclaiming her voice, proving that she was capable of advocating for her own worth and moving forward with newfound confidence. In the days following the trial, life felt almost dreamlike. The $8,000 was officially reclaimed, though Claire's cooperation with the court's ruling was begrudging at best. At home, Claire's presence became one of icy withdrawal, a stark contrast to her usual domineering stance. No longer was she dictating the household's pulse, and that shift was a triumph in itself for Reagan. Bennett, however, appeared adrift. Caught in the living room one evening, he sat, surrounded by a disarray of Claire's financial records unearthed throughout the court proceedings. "She deceived me," Bennett murmured to himself, the weight of realization bearing down. "All these years." "I couldn't see it." Reagan joined him, unsure what solace to offer. "Trust isn't a fault, Dad," she said quietly, trying to bridge the silence. But ignoring her actions, allowing them to harm me, was the bigger betrayal. Bennett met her eyes, wearied by regret. "I should have been your advocate," he confessed. "I should have listened." For a fleeting moment, Reagan wanted to hold on to bitterness, but looked instead toward healing and the promise of a future unburdened by the past. As dawn broke over Parkside University, Reagan stood outside her new dorm, a red brick fortress promising the start of something grand. After endless nights working as a barista and the tumult of recent months, she couldn't believe she was actually here, embarking on her college journey. The air was brisk with the promise of a fresh start, and for Reagan, it felt like a baptism by crisp autumn air into adulthood. The tension that once defined her home life had dissipated the moment Claire packed her bags and left. Her parting gift was a terse note scrawled on the kitchen counter, "I'll tell you where to send my things." The house settled into a new kind of quiet after her departure, a comforting silence where Reagan no longer felt the need to watch her every step. Her stepbrother, Ryder, predictably stayed quiet, his indifference as palpable as always. An apology from him might have been nice, yet Reagan realized she didn't need it. She'd fought her battle and emerged stronger, her victory speaking for itself. The reclaiming of her $8,000 wasn't just a financial triumph, it was the gateway to her future. With newfound freedom, Reagan diverted her energy into meticulous planning, exploring academic programs and calculating budgets. She researched fervently, reshaping her vision of the future into tangible plans. Each decision, however small, felt significant. Each was a brick in the foundation of the life she was building. Her father, Bennett, approached her tentatively one evening, sincerity etched into his weary eyes. "I know I can't change the past," he offered, "but I want to support you however I can." Her instinct was to question his reliability, but a part of her recognized his earnestness for what it was, a step toward healing. "Thank you, Dad," she replied, surprised by the genuineness in her own voice. His attempt, however imperfect, mattered. In the quieter moments of reflection, Reagan pondered the wisdom gained from her ordeal. It wasn't just about revealing Claire's deception or addressing her father's blind eyes. It was about uncovering her own resilience. She realized she was no longer just the quiet barista striving to keep everyone comfortable, but a force who could claim her space and fight fiercely for her ambitions. A few months later, as she settled into her college routines, immersed in lectures and late-night study sessions, she relished every challenge. Each class, each interaction felt like a tangible step toward the life she'd been clawing toward. With every textbook she purchased, alongside every conversation with peers about aspirations and ideas, Reagan brimmed with pride over her accomplishments. Meanwhile, at home, the absence of Claire's overbearing presence became a new norm. Bennett was slowly navigating this uncharted life, calling her every Sunday to touch base. It wasn't perfect, but the effort spoke volumes, bridging the gap between them more than any words ever could. As for Claire and Ryder, they receded into the periphery of her existence, their influences dwindling into insignificance. Reagan needed neither their validation nor the apologies that might never come. She had secured what truly mattered: her independence, her identity, and her future. One weekend, Marlowe came to visit, both wrapped in the cozy bubble of collegiate life. They found a spot on a campus bench, basking in the sun while sipping overpriced coffee. The shared laughter, a balm against the dorm life ridiculousness, painted a picture of renewal. "You're thriving, Reagan," Marlowe said, bumping her shoulder. Her words, infused with pride yet so casually delivered, captured Reagan's spirit perfectly. After all that had transpired, Reagan knew she was not just surviving, she was truly living. Under the twilight sky, the campus buzzed with the electric hum of student life, enveloping Reagan in an unfamiliar yet exhilarating sense of belonging. The cool evening air brushed against her skin as she strolled back to her dorm, Marlowe's words echoing warmly in her mind, words that had shifted her perspective and ignited a spark she hadn't known she possessed. "You're not just standing, Reagan, you're thriving." Those words had felt like an awakening. For too long, Reagan had been oppressed by others' opinions, Claire's dismissive disdain, her father's passive avoidance, even Ryder's apathetic shrug when the family dynamics grew cold. But tonight, under the canopy of campus lights, she reveled in the independence she had so fiercely claimed. Once, Reagan was a young woman filled with uncertainty and fear, but those days had faded with the seasons. The timid version of herself had given way to someone resilient and self-assured, someone who now blazed a trail distinct from the shadowed paths laid out by others. Each step she took resonated with newfound confidence, like punches to the doubts that once caged her courage. Reflecting on her journey, Reagan recalled the girl she was only a year ago, filled with hesitation, her voice silenced under others' judgments. That girl had learned harsh lessons that turned into the building blocks of personal growth. Now she stood at the dawn of a fresh chapter. This was not merely the close of an old story, it was the vibrant commencement of the next adventure. Reagan reveled in the knowledge that her life belonged to her now, a blank canvas ready for her dreams to paint across its breadth. And she couldn't wait to see what bold strokes would define her future. Ready and eager, Reagan stepped into her dorm, embracing the journey and determined to live it to its fullest potential.